You know, the lenses they're making these days, they're different, they're cool, they're new. But we haven't seen anything truly useful outside of these budget cinema lenses in quite some time. New 24-70s, new 70-200s, new other zooms from other brands. No new primes have really been introduced to the market in a while that actually have a good look and don't just look sterile. I'm really looking for something that is a little bit different. You guys have anything that might be a little older? Prior use, still works with mirrorless cameras, but at a reasonable price. Curious to see what you guys have. Let me know.
What's up, guys? My name is Sean from White Jade Productions, and these are the Nikkor G series primes. There are 3 lenses in this set. I've used all of them. I own 2 of them, and I love them to death. If you are thinking of getting Nisi Athenas, DZO Vespids, some other budget cine prime, maybe consider these first. They're certainly not for everybody, but if you want a similar look on a budget, these could potentially save you thousands. The intro you just watched was me testing both of these lenses. They are both marketed as f1.8 lenses, although they're about t1.8, more like f1.7. That's just how Nikon decided to market them. And I used them on my Red Dragon. Obviously through this video, I'm gonna be showing you how they look on full frame, how they look with anamorphic adapters, which I think is a selling point of these lenses. But first I wanna talk about the price, because if you're looking at buying these cheap cine primes or renting them, maybe you could save some money and go with these instead. Now, nothing really does beat a cinema style housing for a lens. However, what these lenses don't have in style, they absolutely make up for in price. The 50mm I purchased for $120. I think I bought my 85mm for right around $300, and I have shot on but don't currently own the 35mm as well. That I think runs around $200 to $250. Either way, the most you're gonna pay for a set is probably around $700 to $800. Not bad at all. And since they all look very similar, they have a slight warm look to them. So you might want to cool things off. I know you didn't see that in the intro, but they definitely have a warm look to them, which is why I compare them a lot to the DZO Vespids. I think they have a very similar look. They kind of have that swirly bokeh in the background, which makes them prime candidates for anamorphic adaptation. If you are all about that cinematic anamorphic look, I think these lenses are going to be perfect for you. Number one, you're gonna have gears with any anamorphic adapter anyways, because one of the flaws that do come with these lenses, and I have to talk about it, is their gear rings. Right here, I have this mounted on my Nikon Z6. So this is the 85. It is the biggest of the 3. You can see how incredibly small that is. It only has a 90-degree focus throw. It's very short. And Nikon also has their focus throw go backwards. They do have gears on them. They're not super sturdy, but they absolutely work with any follow focus. They work great with wireless follow focus systems. I use this with my gimbal all the time. So if you're a person who focuses with wireless follow focus, some sort of handheld unit, or a gimbal, have no fear. Even though this is only 90 degrees of a focus throw and it is reversed, you won't have an issue if you're doing it that way. If you're pulling by hand, this is absolutely something you have to get used to. They're not my favorite to pull by hand, but when you slap an anamorphic adapter on top, both of those issues go away, so there's not too much to complain about there. Let's go back to anamorphic, because I think that's where these lenses shine. If you're considering getting Vespids, Athenas, or maybe the Blazar Remus or Mantis or something else, this is a perfect kind of combination of both, because you can have spherical and anamorphic when you buy an anamorphic adapter. I've used these a lot with the Sure anamorphic adapter. Here's some shots from that. This is a swap video I did, and I think they look great. This is almost all on the 50mm here. I didn't use the 85 much, but you can see from this wedding as well, there's a lot of character in the sides. You just get a lot of swirl. In fact, I would argue there's a little more swirl in this than the Helios 442, but I think it just has a better, cleaner look. These lenses are rather soft when wide open, especially if you're shooting with an anamorphic adapter. They can look quite soft. However, if you look at this interview right here, this looks sharp. I've stopped the 85 down. This is what I shot on the 85, and it is at a 4 f4.5, and it looks crisp. That's one thing I absolutely love about these lenses. They're really soft when you need them to be. I'm shooting at an f2 right now, and you can see it has a nice, soft, nice fall off. Actually, if you look at my monitor back there, you can see the swirling, so that's just how powerful it is. I'm on the 50 right now, and it looks good. Sharp on me, everything else kind of fades away. You get a little cat's eye bokeh. I've kind of put up a little reflection right here so you can see that. It looks nice. Very much resembling both the Arls and the Vespid lenses, which is why I think these are such a good pickup. Obviously, when you're shooting anamorphic, you enhance those characteristics on the side. So if you really care about that, you can have it. If you don't care about it, just shoot spherical and crop in if you want that look, or don't crop at all. Completely up to you. Now, I do have to talk about another problem with these lenses, just as a disclaimer. Their autofocus is a bit loud. These were made for DSLRs. I have this adapted to mirrorless. This is how big the 85 is. Quite small, like fits in the palm of my hand. A lot smaller and a lot lighter than any of your budget cinema lenses. I would say it's slightly smaller than the 16 mil Vespid. Very small, but it also is light, and that's nice, but the focus motors are quite loud. Here, I'll throw it on video mode so you guys can hear and just focus. Obviously, I'm holding that up to my mic, but it is a little loud and a little bit annoying, but I find most of the time when I'm shooting, I don't really notice it, and I manual focus these a lot anyways. Again, anamorphic adapter, I think these are well suited for that. You're gonna manual focus there as well. But it does work with newer cameras. So if you are a Red shooter or a Nikon shooter, you're thinking about getting the Nikon ZR and you want some good lenses to pair with it, these are a great option. I think they're absolutely phenomenal. The autofocus isn't so loud that you hear it in videos unless you're like really close to something or somebody. You won't hear it if there's a mic on someone and the camera's more than a few feet away. They won't hear it. You won't hear it in the audio. It'll work just fine. Obviously, the main focus of these lenses are their look. Nikon has a phenomenal reputation when it comes to high quality glass at a very cheap price. In fact, Nikon just released the world's first ever internal zooming 24-70 2.8, and I believe it's $2,700 or $2,800, only a couple $100 more than Sony and Canon's 24-70 2.8s and its internal zooming. Previously, I want to say a lot of their 24-70s have not only looked better than their competitors, but also been around the $1,800 mark. Nikon has always done a great job, especially with their older lenses. A lot of their older and vintage Nikkor fast lenses have been rehoused into cinema housings. So if you end up really liking these and you're like, hey, I would like to rehouse these, there are actually people out there that do that for you, and they will rehouse your cinema lens. So if that's something you want to look for in the future, that's absolutely a possibility. There are a lot of people out there that already have these lenses on their tables, converting them to a cinema housing right now. The big question here is, should you buy them? Obviously, they're gonna come with some hassle. If you want to use an anamorphic adapter with them, that removes a lot of the hassle. It's great. These are adaptable to any brand. So if you were a Sony shooter, Canon shooter, Fuji shooter, Blackmagic shooter, whatever you like to shoot on, these lenses are adaptable. However, some of the adapters are not electronic, and that will mean you will have to use false color or zebras to guess what stop you're at, which can be tricky. I found it's not that hard. Actually, a lot of adapters come with markings on them. I have one on my Lumix right now where I have a F-mount 24-70 from Sigma on. I have markers on that to know when I'm at a 2.8, a 4, or a 5.6. Not that big of a deal, but can be a little tricky. Obviously, you're not gonna be doing any kind of iris pool unless you are on a Nikon or Red camera that has that adaptation. Now, if you are a Red user that uses a DSMC2 or DSMC1 camera like I do, Red actually supplies an F-mount for that, and that's what I'm using right now. So you can have all your controls and parameters for that lens within your Red camera. And if you're shooting on a newer Komodo or V-Raptor with that Z-mount, you can just use this little adapter right here that I have on my Z6, and you can adapt it that way. So there's a lot of use for this lens no matter what you shoot on, which is something I recommend, but it is just going to come with a few cons, that being that focus ring, not that great. It is backwards, and also the fact that the motor's loud. But other than that, not that much of an issue. If you want to save thousands of dollars, this is absolutely the move. It's one of the reasons I haven't bought any DZO lenses. I haven't bought any Nikkor lenses. I feel like these lenses do what I need. I do wish there were more lenses in the set, but I find when I want to go wider, a lot of Nikon's other lenses match up great. In fact, I have a Sigma 24-70 that anytime I want a little bit wider, I want to shoot on 24, I find that that lens matches up really, really well. It looks really similar. Sigma happened to do a good job. That lens is also 300 bucks. Not bad at all. You can definitely round out this set with other lenses, but I think these three lenses work great on their own and they'll cover most shooters for what they need. Real quick, let's talk about the autofocus on these lenses. I'm gonna do a little test and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, there you go. The Nikon Z6 OG, which is what I shot that on, definitely isn't the best autofocusing camera. It was not built for video. It is a stills camera and that's pretty much what I use it for. However, it does handle pretty well. I found that the lens does a very good job keeping up with subjects. And if you want to use its autofocus with the newer cameras like the Nikon ZR or Z6 III, it will handle up just fine. It just might be a little bit slower than newer lenses. But if you're planning on using this like a cinema lens and want to have that real person focus pull feel, it'll actually kind of give you that. It's definitely not so slow that it's not usable, but that's just something else to take into account. If you guys have any questions about this lens, please leave a comment below. I've had a lot of people requesting this video. I've talked about these lenses before, but not done a dedicated video on them. So if you guys have any questions, leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and until next time.